Hello everyone. Today we are starting with the second chapter of history, that is from trade to territory. Aurangzeb was the last of the powerful Mughal rulers. He established control over a very large part of the territory that is now known as India. After his death in 1707, many Mughal governors, that is Subedars, and big zamindars began asserting their authority and establishing their regional kingdoms. As powerful regional kingdoms emerging in various parts of India, Delhi could no longer function as an effective center. By the second half of 18th century, however, a new power was emerging in the political horizon, the British. Did you know that the British originally came as a small trading company and were reluctant to acquire territories? How then did they came to be masters of a vast empire? In this chapter, you will see how this came about. East India comes east. In 1600, the East India Company acquired a charter from the ruler of England, Queen Elizabeth I, granting it the sole right to trade with East. This meant that no other trading group in England could compete with the East India Company. With this charter, the company could venture across the oceans looking for new lands from which it could buy goods at the cheaper price and carry them back to Europe to sell at higher price. The company did not have to fear competition from other English trading companies. There comes a concept of mercantile. Trading companies in those days made profit primarily by excluding competition so that they could buy cheap and sell things at higher price. So mercantile means a business enterprise that makes profit primarily through trade, buying goods cheap and selling them at higher price. The Royal Charter, however, could not prevent other European powers from entering the eastern markets. By the time first English ships sailed down to the west coast of Africa, around the Cape of Good Hope, and crossed the Indian Ocean, the Portuguese had already established their presence in the western coast of India and had their base on Goa. In fact, it was Vasco da Gama, a Portuguese explorer, who had discovered this sea route to India in 1498. By the early 17th century, the Dutch too were exploring the possibilities of trade in the Indian Ocean. Soon, the French traders arrived in the scene. The problem was that all the companies were interested in buying the same things: the fine qualities of cotton and silk produced in India as a big market in Europe. Pepper, cloves, cardamom, and cinnamon too were in great demand. Competition amongst the European companies inevitably pushed up the price at which these goods could be purchased, and this reduced the profits that could be earned. The only way the trading companies could flourish was by eliminating rival competitors. The urge to secure markets therefore led to aggressive battles between the trading companies. Through the 17th and 18th centuries, they regularly sank each other's ships, blockaded routes, and prevented rival ships from moving with supplies of goods. Trade was carried on with arms, and trading posts were protected through boundaries. This effort to fortify settlements and carry on profitable trade also led to intense conflict with local rulers. The company therefore found it difficult to separate trade from politics. Let us see how this happened. East India Company begins trade in Bengal. The first English factory was set up on the banks of the river Hooghly in 1651. This was the base from which the factories traders, known at that time as factors, operated. The factory had a warehouse where goods for export were stored, and it had offices where company officials sat. As trade expanded, the company persuaded merchants and traders to come and settle near the factory. By 1696, it began building a fort around the settlement. 2 years later, it bribed Mughal officials into giving the company's zamindari rights over 3 villages. One of these was Kalikata, which later grew into the city of Calcutta or Kolkata as it is known today. It also persuaded the Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb to issue a farman granting the company the right to trade duty free. Now, what is farman? It's a royal edict or a royal order. The company tried continuously to press for more concessions and manipulate existing privileges. Aurangzeb's farman, for instance, had granted only the company the right to trade duty free, but officials of the company who were carrying on private trade on the side were expected to pay duty. This they refused to pay, causing an enormous loss of revenue for Bengal. How could the Nawab of Bengal, Murshid Quli Khan, not protest? How trade led to battles. Through the early 18th century, the conflict between the company and the Nawabs of Bengal increased. After the death of Aurangzeb, the Bengal Nawabs asserted their power as the other regional powers were doing at that time. Murshid Quli Khan was followed by Alivardi Khan and then Sirajuddaulah as the Nawab of the Bengal. Each one of them was a strong ruler. They refused to grant the company concessions and demanded large tributes for the company's right to trade, and stopped it from extending its boundaries. Accusing the company of cheat, they claimed that the company was depriving the Bengal government of huge amounts of revenue and undermining the authorities of the Nawab. It was refusing to pay taxes, writing disrespectful letters, and trying to humiliate the Nawab and his officials. The company, on its part, declared that the unjust demands of the local officials were ruining the trade of the company, and trade could flourish only if the duties were removed. It was also convinced that to expand trade, it had to enlarge its settlement, buying up villages and rebuild its forts. The conflict led to challenges and finally led to the famous Battle of Plassey. The Battle of Plassey occurred on 23 Jan 1756. When Alivardi Khan died in 1756, Sirajuddaulah became the Nawab of Bengal. The company was worried about his power and keen on a puppet ruler who could willingly give trade concessions and other privileges. Puppet means a toy that you can move with strings. The term is used disapprovingly to refer to a person who is controlled by someone else. So it tried, though without success, to help one of the Sirajuddaullah's rivals become the Nawab. Sirajuddaulah asked the company to stop interfering in the political affairs of his dominion, stop boundaries, and pay the revenues. After negotiation failed, the Nawab marched with 30,000 soldiers in the English factory at Qasim Bazar, captured the company officials, locked the warehouse, disarmed all Englishmen, and blockaded English ships. Then he marched to Calcutta to establish control over the company's fort there. On hearing the news of the fall of Calcutta, company officials in Madras sent forces under the command of Robert Clive. Negotiations with Nawab followed. Finally, in 1757, Robert Clive led the company's army against Sirajuddaula at Plassey. One of the main reasons for the defeat of the Nawab was that the force led by Mir Jafar, one of the Sirajuddaula's commanders, never fought the battle. Clive had managed to secure his support by promising to make him Nawab after crushing Sirajuddaula. The Battle of Plassey became famous because it was the first major victory the company won in India.